Hello, and today I'll introduce to you the sitcom Married with Children 1987. I will tell you about the original names and ages of the actors and how they changed in 2022. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to support us. Alright, let's get started. Bud Bundy is played by David Faustino. He's the second child. In the original pilot, his name would be Ben. In the first season, Bud was supposed to be in the 5th grade, meaning he was 10 or 11 years old. But in subsequent seasons, he's a year younger than Callie, graduating from high school in 1991. He was named for Budweiser beer. In 1987, he was 13 years old, and now he's 48 years old.
Means a whole lot that you're here today, and I appreciate your support.
My pleasure, Dave.
As always, you
My
have been
pleasure.
throughout all the years. I mean, it is kind of like a reunion here.
Peggy Bundy is played by Katie Sagal. She is Al's lazy and lethargic wife. She refuses to work, cook, or clean the house. She attributes her laziness to a family tradition, which upsets Kelly when she goes to work. She stated that Wanker women never worked, and in the old pioneer days, Wanker women do their hair while the Wanker men shave their heads. In 1987, she was 33 years old, and now she's 68 years old.
Honestly, knowing that I've made mistakes and sort of gives them the that we all make mistakes. It just, I didn't want to make.
Steve Rose is played by David Garrison. He was Marcy's first husband. Like the name Bundy, the creators chose the surname Rose after professional wrestler Dusty Rhodes. He was a seemingly unfazed banker with a lower position than Marcy at the Citibank. In 1987, he was 35 years old, and now he's 70 years old.
Shot from one episode where Steve had been arrested with a bloody lip. It was a mugshot, and they wrote across it, and you're going to have to bleep this for your audience.
Al Bundy is played by Ed O'Neill. He is the head of the Bundy family, who fell in all his wishes because of the Bundy curse. Once a promising winger for the fictional Polk High School, he was on his way to college on a scholarship until he broke his leg and ended up working as a shoe salesman at Gary Shoes in Newmarket Mall. In 1987, he was 41 years old, and now he's 76 years old.
Sitting out front with his wife, and there was a kid sitting next to him with his wife, I assumed, but I couldn't see them well. It was getting dark, and I sat down, and
Bob Rooney is played by E.E. Bell. He's the one of Al's neighborhood friends and the treasurer of No Ma'am. He worked as a butcher, had a wife named Louise, and played on the same team as Al on Polk High School. He was always called by both his first and last name, even his wife's, and it was spelled out as a word on his bowling shirt. In 1993, he was 38 years old, and now he's 67 years old.
So kind of all that was left, and if I changed my last name, my dad would not have been happy. So all that was kind of left was to make the initials, so E.E. Bell. I prefer to be called Ed.
Marcy Darcy is played by Amanda Beers. She's Peg's best friend, Al's arch nemesis, and the family's neighbor. Marcy is married to Steve Rose, who is equally tough. In the first episode pilot, they introduced themselves to the Bundys as their new neighbors, who were married 3 months earlier. In 1987, she was 29 years old, and now she's 64 years old.
What it wanted to do. And that wasn't okay with me. I felt like this was such a sacred and important time.
Kelly Bundy is played by Christina Applegate. She's the oldest child in the Bundy family. She's promiscuous and pretty, tends to hang out with the lazy guys, and is a prime example of the dumb blonde. Al is annoyed by Kelly's promiscuity and tends to treat her love interest with a combination of mockery and violence. In 1987, she was 16 years old, and now she's 51 years old.
By saying, she said to me the other day, Mom, I think I'm old enough to really appreciate Disneyland. So the first time we went, she's like super.
Gary is played by Janet Carroll. She's the owner of Gary Shoes and the employer of Al. Gary first appeared after Al turned her woman's shoe store into a men's store, assuming that Gary was male and therefore wouldn't notice. Gary is extremely rich. She was able to make the Forbes 400 list, but only made it to 401 because of the shoe store, her only failed business venture. In 1994, she was 54 years old, and sadly, she passed away on May 22, 2012 at the age of 71.
Susan, you can see now that this is a pattern. He's out of control. It is not safe for you or the children.
Jefferson Darcy is played by Ted McGinley. He is Marcy's second husband, a pretty boy who married her for money. Self-centered and lazy, he is the male equivalent of Peg. Jefferson gave Kelly and Bud more advice on their problems than Al. Meanwhile, the French-hating Al never understood that Jefferson's last name, Darcy, was French. In 1989, he was 31 years old, and now he's 64 years old. Steve.
Yeah, sure. So I went out, took one class. I was terrible. I went in and auditioned, and they put me on tape, and ABC signed me. Because I think I...
Luke Ventura is played by Rich Schittner. He's a colleague at the shoe store. He's a sly flirt, always seducing beautiful women and stealing Al's revenue. Peggy hates him while Al tolerates him. In 1987, he was 35 years old, and now he's 70 years old.
Professional comics to what I would say late nighters in the business back in 1979. I started in 77. When I got to New York, about 400.
Griff is played by Harold Sylvester. He's Al's friend and colleague at the shoe store. He's also a member of Al's organization No Ma'am. As a divorced person, he shares many of Al's traits in terms of work ethic and views on women. However, Griff wasn't completely impolite or outspoken to the client or to the boss. In 1994, he was 45 years old, and now he's 73 years old.
Was you know, I mean, the real first, you know, I mean, the many forks in the road, first turning point, you know, I mean, in my life. And I think the most incredible thing that happened.
Ike is played by Tom McClyster. He's another member of No Ma'am and another friend of Al's. He's the organization's sergeant-at-arms. He works as an auto mechanic and has a wife named Franny. Slightly unsettling, he believes Elvis is still alive. The character is named after the son of producer Kim Kreiskopf's best friend. In 1994, he was 45 years old, and now he's 73 years old. Officer Dan is played by Dan Tullis Jr. He's a friend of Al's who's also on No Ma'am and works full-time as a Chicago cop. Surprisingly, despite being part of No Ma'am, he often catches them for their illegal antics and tries to keep them out of trouble. In 1989, he was 39 years old, and now he's 71 years old. Thank you for watching the whole video. If you like this video, please share it, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to support us in producing